somewhere near the Rotary Building? I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yep.
Stephen, I sent you a purchase order one of those before I left off.
Okay.
You'll see it in there in a moment.
Not that they can see the screen.
For my under the seat storage box. Is it for my storage box under the seat?
You shouldn't need a purchase order for that.
I don't know.
It's for wire.
I got it on my phone. That's why I brought my laptop so I can see it.
This one just $25,000.
Yes, sir.
We might need to set it there.
We getting a good deal out of this one.
But they didn't approve it. Did you ask for that switch?
No, it's not in the
How we doing?
we got to get it. That's a no-brainer. We've got to have it.
From my brother, you can call her the one that suggested that we go with D.
Them people around here don't want to do power. They ain't got it. They ain't got it. And it takes 3 or 4 hours to get your lights back on. And then
I'm voting to approve what it is.
do what?
I'm voting to approve what it is.
I got a new line truck in the budget and another section of the transmission line.
I saw those, you had a number of them too.
Yeah, and which most of the rest of the stuff that I had in there to add on to the building down there that got cut
I
out.
didn't get another
Christmas decorations got cut out. Tractor got cut out.
I might already live.
I got 2 positions added that we desperately need, and that truck. And I spent more money on that truck this year than it's worth. So tell me how much sense that makes. So anyway, that's what I got.
Oh,
I'm
we don't
good.
go there.
You all are hurting.
It's the truth. I mean,
Show me the number.
I can show it to you.
Where it's coming from?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's balanced.
Oh, I know.
It's in there. It's balanced. Yeah.
I'm just here to do what I know. Make creative suggestions.
Creative suggestions?
That's what we're calling it. Feels good to be in here without a bunch of people wanting to kill you with pitchforks. They got the pitchforks and torches out.
All about that.
It's hard to be me sometimes.
Because you're fabulous.
I am kind of a big deal, is what they say.
What's the deal in the world of electric? Nothing going on much?
No, just working.
Working too hard? Thank you for being here.
Sure.
I've got
I will tell you this, we're still waiting on a reply from the next grid on the holidays. Being all off week. So we're still on the hook. Greg hasn't gotten any good answer from them yet. Making sure the holidays can be done. All that's going on. I can't imagine that they can't be. It's kind of stupid. I'm sure Tyler's set up, they can't have Don set up if you're trying to do something, you get 2 meter reads and one read is all eight. Or you can build one rate, one another rate, I mean, I don't know particularly about Tyler, but it doesn't seem too particular.
what we're doing. They're building out the portal for how the next grid. And they were only, they're only sending the data, electric
The guy fixing it falls off. Cost you a fortune. Oh, yeah.
They just couldn't get around calling everybody, so they were just cutting things off in here.
How you get a block switch? Did you get a license for one of those?
I mean, I think we can get it.
Fall off.
I'm pretty sure that's they frowned upon.
I want to know how people get them. Because if you can't buy them, how are you supposed to get them?
They make them with 3D print.
Out of plastic? Where you get that from?
Now that I can't tell you.
Somebody with a CNC machine on mine. All you gotta do is have the dimensions of it.
Where you get them from?
That I can't tell you.
He can probably tell you right when you find it.
I don't look.
You probably don't need to be messing with that anymore. This would not be a good idea.
This thing started.
We'll wait till 10 o'clock.
Let me get everyone's attention, please. Right now, it's 6:32 by that clock up there. Right now, we don't have a quorum, so we're trying to find out, we know the Commissioner Noah's out of town, the mayor is still recovering, and we're trying to get hold of Commissioner Davis, so we need to have one more commissioner here at the quorum to hold our meeting. So that's what the holdup is right now, so we can't start anything until we have a quorum, okay? Just want your patience.
Coach Davis probably taking a nap.
The last meeting, the meeting about like an hour late, it was late.
What?
Yeah. It was the last meeting.
I'm sure it'll be my fault that I didn't tell them.
It's time.
My voice carries.
Thank you.
5 minutes.
I got just like, did you know that they can't send some for contracts at the same time?
So when Lane's doing her, in place of the mayor, does he get the vote? Or does he not?
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I'm looking for a guy.
Magic. Huh? Did it? What I mean, you can't.
The flag at Campbell Road was not flying today.
That's cause it was.
Let's put it back up there.
Oh.
They dropped, they can't lower it to half staff cause it'd be in the way.
Which
When
one
the
did
older
before
found out they
that
took it down, they made them
closed.
put it back up.
Oh, yes, I didn't know they had two of them.
I didn't either, but they closed one of them, so the news said.
Yeah.
Did Camden over there on the Christmas Ford?
Was that
on
them
hotel?
too? Was,
I think it's a different.
yeah, that, I don't think,
That was like a RV deal.
yeah, I don't think that was Camping World. That's just gonna turn into a show before it's all over with.
You call me? Hello? Huh? Huh? No, I'm at work, mother. Alright. What's the police department got in their CIP?
Nothing.
Nothing?
But we got money last year.
Y'all still spending it?
Well, it's been spent, but the stuff ain't come in like we bought. Like the wagon cars.
That's replacing the whole fleet, ain't it?
Yep. We got, they buy cameras, in-car cameras, some radars. It's like, $40,000.
What, when are y'all gonna sell them cars that's on the yard?
Hopefully, as soon as these new ones come in, because we're only gonna keep like 3 of those Durangos that we got as spares and everything else for sale. Do it all one time.
Huh? Only around 7 million? Is that good or bad? I'm gonna write a check for that.
Always a good thing.
I'll time to get those back first.
Your budget for that building you're trying to.
You got to keep them.
Hey, Marcia.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I didn't send you the class.
It's coming in hot. Story of my life on the road.
Whose kid is that?
That's my kid.
Let me see.
He just had a problem.
Wow. When's prom?
49.
What school she go to? Gonna get her a limousine and all that?
No, she's driving to break down. She's doing what it doesn't have.
She's driving a broke down van.
I don't know how old I'm.
Wow.
Because we don't care about cars.
Her boyfriend don't got a license.
He's got a permit.
Oh, he ain't old enough?
He's old enough.
Yeah, her Girl Scout what? What is that? Eagle Scout?
girls you got?
I got two.
Other two
She's got
guys?
her, she's got the bronze and her silver. And she's got a great combo that I think she can get there. And the son I always have.
Still mess around with this stuff.
For Girl Scouts? You never know, man. I took my son to the Boy Scout stuff, and the Boy Scouts ain't what it used to be. Like, I went to the Boy Scouts when I was little, and we went on like fishing trips, and we went camping. We learned how to tie knots, how to make knives. So I took my son, and they wanted to sit around in a circle and sing songs. And I'm like, this ain't what we doing, son. This ain't no, we're gonna do something else. So we started playing football. We did away with the Boy Scouts. Singing the songs, singing the band.
But he also charged about $15,000.
Figured out how many put him in.
Oh, really? How old is he?
That's what got the dude that got beat.
I think they would say fat guy like me. If I was around,
And he beat it. It went away. Never got it. Like it never happened.
He comes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
how you doing? Somebody called me about that thing. You taking a nap, coach? About to. Told you. Do some floats.
I guess he got his temporary license.
Snaps in the block.
Well, it's way back.
I forgot about it live.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call. Jeremy?
Good evening, we have a couple of members excused for the evening, Mayor Newborn and Commissioner Newell. The rest of us, Commissioner Collins.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Langley,
Here.
Commissioner Galt,
Here.
and Commissioner Davis. Thank you.
Thanks. I'd like to welcome everyone here. This is our budget workshop, our first one. We're going to have one more after this one, unless we need more. But this is our budget workshop for April 23rd. So we want to welcome everyone here. Commissioner Connor's going to do our invocation for us.
Good evening. Let's bow for words of prayer. Eternal Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for enabling us to come out to this meeting tonight. Bless us as we go about to take care of business for the town of Ayden and surrounding areas. We got our thoughts and our mind. Protect us as we travel back home. This is our prayer in Jesus' name.
Amen. Let us stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. Okay, before we move into approval of the agenda, I want to add one item to the agenda tonight under items for discussion, under A, it would be B, and it's in reference to our board meetings, our regular board meetings. I want to add to our regular board meetings, public comments, resolutions from prior board meetings. Basically, when we have our public public comments in our board meetings, we have our residents come forward and address the board with their comments. But we don't bring them back to the board on resolution what we've done with the comments. So I want to add that to our agenda on our regular board meetings. So I would need a motion to add that to the agenda tonight under discussion for item 3B. Got a motion from Commissioner Connor. Second by Commissioner Goff. All in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next thing we're going to move into is Mr. Vandermaat Moss is here to go over a presentation from Time of Use Pilot Program. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Yes. There we go. Good evening. My name is Rick Vandermoss. I'm the rates manager for Electricities, and we have participated with the Town of Ayden and several others to perform a time of use rate development study. I want to thank Mr. Howard, Ms. Hall, your AMI supplier NextGrid, and Utility Financial Solutions that did the analysis in doing this analysis and getting this ready for the town to consider. So it's important that this is kind of a future rate structure, and it's important as moving forward in electric rates to address time of use, to address solar, electric vehicles, and the way customers impact the grid. So this is a very needed thing to have happen in a lot of members in Eastern Agency. So the next slide. So what we're going to talk about is how the time of use periods were developed, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We get questions at the end, and I'll keep it high level. But how the coincident peaks developed the time of use periods, the resulting time of use periods from that analysis, the residential rate for phase-in, the path, and the small general service rate phase-in path. We'll talk about high and low impacts. In any rate that you develop, there are winners and losers. And these high and low impacts, these are the bookends in a bell curve. They're the ends, and we'll talk about those and how they are impacted and how the rate impacts everybody in the middle. So the next slide is the coincident peaks. So what Utility Financial Solutions did was they took the peaks for the last couple of years and they assigned them into buckets, both by month, hour, and season. Okay? And what they did is say, okay, when did the peaks occur? Now, your wholesale power costs, you have 1 hour a month. There's an average of 730 hours every month on average. One of those hours is the peak hour for Duke. And that is the hour that the town gets billed on for what your demand is during that hour. So lay those hours out in the grid and develop probabilities of when are you going to hit those. And what they do is they break down into seasons. They break down technically into 3 seasons. A summer season, a winter season, and a shoulder season. So that was one of the first decisions we made, not to go with a shoulder season. We took the shoulder months, which are generally April, March, October, November. Generally, those are your shoulder months. And we set those into their appropriate months. Generally, we put them in the winter. I think we took May, put that in the summer. So we've got 2 seasons. When you've got the CP hours, you can see that they count in each month. Another analysis we did was weekends. How often does a CP occur on a weekend? Turns out it happens at least once a year. There's a 13% probability that the CP hour will occur on a weekend. And we'll talk about that a little more in just a bit. So this is a probability analysis, and it tries to predict the time frame that a peak is going to happen. When does the time of use rate want to send the price signal to the customer to say, hey, don't turn your air conditioning up, don't do laundry. If you can cook dinner on a gas stove, great, or maybe you need to put it off a little bit more or microwave something. Making these decisions that can save you money during on-peak periods. Right now, under your current rate, you charge a little over 12 cents per kilowatt hour. There is no incentive if a person decides to do laundry at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in July. That hour could be the peak hour, and that costs the city more for that person to do laundry. But if you send this price signal in a time of use rate, maybe they can do the laundry after 7 o'clock or before 1 o'clock, and we'll talk about those rates right now. So these were the identified periods that will come out of that probability analysis. During the summer, the on-peak period would be between 1 and 7 p.m. And during the winter, it would be between 6 and 10 a.m. And when you look at the load management schedule, that's generally, that's hour beginning and ending at 10 a.m. So the 9 a.m. hour ending at 10 a.m. And then 1 and ending at 7 p.m. So during those hours, the next grid AMI meters would segregate those kilowatt hours for a customer and put those into an on-peak bucket. Now, you see in the lower left there, one of the other decisions that was made was, well, what about weekends? What about holidays? So we looked at what other folks were doing, what other things we're doing to try to come to a consensus decision. And the decision was, no, because of the probability of it landing on a weekend, we needed to keep the weekend as the on-peak periods going on the weekends. But the probabilities are low for the holidays. And those holidays, New Year's Day, MLK Day, President's Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Independence, Labor, Veterans, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. So, and it's one of those things where when you don't want to overburden your customers, industries shut down on a lot of those holidays. You have a much lower probability when industry shuts down. There's a couple of them that are possible. Juneteenth, MLK Day, Memorial Day, and Labor Day are ones where sometimes industry doesn't shut down. But those 4 days, you're still dealing with very low probabilities that everything aligns for a peak to happen during those hours, during those days. So those were the hours, including with having the federal holidays off peak that the rates were developed on. So the residential phase-in rates. So this is a pilot. What UFS did was they developed a phase-in. So if you could flip a switch and either put all your customers, if you were going to move all of your customers either all at once or over a short period of time, say you were going to ship 1,000 customers every month or every 2 months or whatever it is, you would start at phase 1. But you want a pilot, so when you do a pilot, what's more important is the delta. The delta between the standard rate and the phase and the time of use rate. So you want to send a sufficient price signal. And that's why we chose the phase 2 rates for both residential and small commercial. And you can see there those are the rates that are used in the rate tariffs that you'll see eventually at the public hearing. So let me explain the off-peak. Off-peak rate is a rate that covers your wholesale power costs and your marginal distribution costs. Can we flip back to the second slide? One more. That one. Note there at the top, the power supply costs. The off-peak rate covers those on a marginal basis, those top power supply costs that are listed there. But you've got the other hours. The other hours are what fill in the other revenues that you need to run the system, not just your distribution expenses. It's salaries, it's more capital spending, it's all the different other aspects, not just the marginal cost. Go back to the rest, there you go. So because we're not changing metering, where the customer charge, the monthly facilities charge will remain the same, whether you're on the time of use rate or whether you're on the standard rate. And therefore, you know, it's only a difference of what's read on the meter, and there's no real cost difference there for next grid. The on-peak rates, now that's a combination of the analysis that was done by UFS. What was done by UFS, there's 6 hours of on-peak time in the summer and 4 hours of on-peak time in the winter. So when you put those hours together, that is why the rates are different between summers, because we're trying to make up that revenue that a customer needs to pay if they're on peak and driving the peak and the wholesale cost of the utility. Okay, that's that price signal. If they're not using power during those on-peak periods, the peak occurs, the town saves money, the customer saves money. It's a win-win for both. So the next phase is the small general service. That is a different class, different cost metrics and everything, and you can see UFS came up. Now one thing I will tell you about this is there's 5 digits, there's 6 digits, 5 digits there in the rates. I did round the rates like to 2.65 or 4.8, I think it was 2.65, 10.65, those kinds of things. I did round those up instead of being 5 digits. When you get too many rates, in my experience, when you get too many digits in an electric rate, that is a confusion factor for customers. So it's best to never exceed four digits in the rate. So let's talk about the winners and losers and what the assumption is. The primary assumption is down there in the lower left. These are your winners and losers if they did nothing, if they don't change their pattern. The rates were developed based on somebody going on this rate but not changing their behavior. Okay? The customer and the city save money if the customer shifts their behavior and shifts laundry, cooking, air conditioning, all the different electrical aspects that they purchase electricity to run in their houses, that they would shift those costs to off-peak hours. They save money, the town saves money. So in terms of percentages, this is the percentage graph and the increase. So the worst case scenario customer on the residential side would see a 23% or $16 increase in their bill. Now this is over 400 customers that were examined in the residential class, 100 customers in the commercial class. And so they did this, UFS did this analysis. You can see like the 13% customer, their bill went up $56.36. So what you're seeing here is people that are they're driving your peak. The customers that suffer the largest increases are the customers that are driving the CP, that are driving the town's wholesale power costs. And those are the folks you want to respond. Now, with any rate, there are winners and losers. It doesn't matter what type of rate structure it is. Your standard rate right now, there are winners and losers. Low-use customers are winners. High-use customers are losers because the rate is at an average. That 12.42 cents is an average, and the more you use, the more you're contributing to the distribution costs of the town. And the less you use, you get the same level of service, but you're not contributing as much. So in these cases, what you're seeing here on the winner side are customers. So worst case, if nobody odds are, if nobody changed their behavior, your winner would see a $46 or 14% reduction on the residential side. On the commercial side, that 21%, $8 increase, that could be a church that operated during peak during the summer or something like that. It's kind of hard to picture what would drive that increase. The other ones below that, 20%, those customers that are going up, more of your, active users, they're using more energy, and they're driving again. These customers that see bill increases are driving your wholesale peak. On the savings side, the winter side, those customers are probably your higher load factor customers. Those are customers that are using a lot more electricity around the clock. Therefore, they would have more hours and more usage off peak. Therefore, that drives their savings with the fewer hours on peak that they would have. So that's the yin and the yang of a time to use rate when you're doing a static analysis and how to look at those customers. So, let's see if I got anything else in my notes. I think that. So like I said, the biggest thing I want you to take away from this one is to remember, every rate design, there's only one rate design a PhD came up with that's a perfect rate design, and it's very complicated, and nobody's, as far as I know, nobody's enacted it. So every rate design, every rate structure has a compromise. And these, and a time of use does too. It is not perfect. But high load factor customers are generally, high use customers are generally always winners on a time of use rate. Lower use customers aren't. The folks in the middle, that bell curve, in the middle, those are the folks that can do a little bit and shift laundry, shift cooking, turn the AC up a little bit during the on-peak hours so the air conditioning doesn't run as much. Or find an alternate method for heating in the summertime when they wake up in the morning. The coffee pot's not driving the peak, but their air conditioning, their electric heat, their heat strips, those things are driving the peak. And that's what the behavior you're trying through a rate structure like this, that you're addressing, and you're trying to get the customers to shift their behavior, and it results in savings for them and savings for the town. So the next one is questions. I know that's a lot, I apologize, but it was a really great analysis. UFS did a good job. Staff got all the data we need. We had a couple 100 megabytes worth of data that they plowed through. It took a little while, but it was really good, worthwhile analysis.
Thank you. And I have a couple questions, if I may. For instance, the peak hour, you said is 1 hour. That's 1 hour per day, right?
On your wholesale.
Right, 1 hour per day. That's peak time, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so 30 days a month, that'd be 30 hours, 31, whatever. It's 1 hour a day. Currently, the town of Ayden, as well as a lot of municipals, we're actually, during peak time, we're roughly 12 cents a kilowatt. I'm sorry, prior to peak time. Once we hit peak time, do you know what Duke charges per kilowatt during peak?
The wholesale power is the same all hours of the month. There is no time of use aspect to your wholesale power rate. The energy rate is the same for all hours of the month.
Okay, so in other words, if we're buying at a certain cents per kilowatt during peak time, we're not charged more per kilowatt.
For the energy, no, but you're charged the $22 and I believe 74-cent demand charge.
And that's per kilowatt.
That's per kW. That's per kW demand. Yes.
So in reality, that is going from what their wholesale power is, what we pay, to $22 per kilowatt during the demand hour.
No. You're not transferring. What you're doing is through these energy rates, through those hours, those are the most likely hours for the peak to occur. The peak occurs a lot of times at a different hour every month. And when you get to winter, it shifts from the afternoon to the morning, from 6 to 10 in the morning. So what a time of use rate does is say, go back to the residential rates, slide 5, right there. You're sending a 26-cent price signal to your customers for 4 hours all days of the week except for federal holidays, from 6 to 10 a.m. What they use during that period, every day for the winter, 18.39 cents during the summer, that they will be billed on their kilowatt hour energy use during those hours. The meter will separate out their energy. They're not being billed a demand charge. That's a wholesale power phenomenon. You haven't moved to a demand type. And like I was telling you, that perfect demand charge, or the perfect rate, is a demand charge, time of use energy, a power cost adjustment. It's a really nightmarish rate. This is a piece of it that sends a price signal to the customers that during these hours, don't do the laundry, don't do this. Think about what you're doing, how you're using energy.
Right, so with our current kilowatt for the residential unit, say it's 12 cents. During peak, it would be, during the summer, it'd be, during that peak hour per kilowatt, 18.39 instead of the 12 cents.
On the time, correct.
During the peak time.
Correct. During all hours, Monday through Sunday, from 1 to 7 p.m., all the energy they use would be billed at 18.39.
Even though there's only one peak hour.
But that goes back to the second slide after the introduction. You don't know the hour every month. You need to send that price signal all those hours during the day. Because remember, that $22 demand charge is like 50 or 60% of your bill. And what you're trying to do is get your customers to shift off of those hours, so when that peak hour does occur, they've shifted usage. And they're not on your peak.
So we're basically going for the hours in winter based on this pilot program. It would go almost 26 cents a kilowatt during the winter hours, during those winter hours, based on that. And during the summer, based on that, it would go to 18.39 on the pilot program for those hours in the summertime.
Yes.
So what would this? How could this? We're set pretty much. But how would this program work if we didn't have AMI?
You wouldn't be able to do it.
You wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, AMI is the key to advanced rate structures.
Right.
Yeah, AMI and AMR, meters that can be programmed to monitor energy usage and put it in buckets, either measure demand or put energy in buckets where the meters can be programmed. Those advanced metering techniques and capabilities are what allow advanced rate structures.
So if, we had discussed in the past about doing load management, and we were looking at that. If we ever got to there where we have, load management systems go into homes, would that alter any of this? Would that load management cover the entire hours you're talking about during winter and summer? How would that work?
Okay, so if I was going to rank, what you're talking about is the next step up in terms of time of use rates. And what that's called is a critical peak pricing rate. And what happens is you do this same exact analysis, but you more narrow focus when the peaks will occur. Like electricity sends out notifications that load management is going to happen this afternoon, run generators from 3 to 6. Okay? So the other thing too is this program doesn't really cost you any money. This is a free-to-you program. You already have the capabilities to operate. A critical peak pricing rate, now you're talking about installing switches on hot water heaters, installing smart thermostats that are internet capable that you can send, and the infrastructure at the town to send out the signal to turn off those water heaters, to raise the temperature on those thermostats. That's a huge cost to the town. Huge cost. And it is an ongoing cost to maintain the software, all the switches. But what you do at that point, you would have modified rates that would look like this. But you'd have one more rate that would be a critical peak rate. And that would run in the 45 and 50 cent range. And you would send the signal out when electricity sends the email out. Marcia or the electric folks, they would hit the button on the software. It would say, and they would send the load management signal. The signal would go out to the folks that are participating. It would raise their temperature on their thermostats. It would cut the power to their hot water heaters. And they would be off the grid and on terms of that. And they would pay 40, but if they were running a coffee pot or the TV or something along those lines or a ceiling fan, they pay 45 or 50 cents per kilowatt hour during those load management hours or those critical peak hours. But this is I won't say cost-free. There's a personnel cost, there's a billing cost, there's, it's not totally cost-free program, but you have the infrastructure in place. You don't have anything to buy additional to do a rate like this. Your software, your billing software will bill it, your meters will handle it. And then, so you just need folks to test it out and see how well it operates. That next piece up, that next step up in critical peak, that involves billing, that involves a lot more billing, more hands-on, more people, more hardware and cost to the town. And it's hard to judge what those savings to the town could be.
Now, you mentioned, it was a very good point, and I've noticed that I put in a smart thermostat in my business, and I've noticed at times, or a certain time of day, it says peak. Mm-hmm. So it actually turns off my air.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so because I'm looking at, we're talking about a number of hours during the summer, a number of hours during the winter, and we're going to have to, or everyone's going to have to program themselves to know that they're paying more for kilowatts if the pilot program goes further, and during those hours they're paying more per kilowatt. Is that something that if a person bought a smart, a smart thermostat, is that something that they can control through that, basically hours, I guess? You'd have to go through and set schedules?
A smart thermostat now does exactly that. It sets schedules. It allows a person to, if they're going to work all day, they can set it. They can set the air conditioner.
That's just
come out an hour.
That's just your heater, your
and air conditioner, and it doesn't affect the utility. That's not something that the utility is driving. It's something that the customer has installed to, whenever the kids are going to school, and mom and dad are gone working and stuff like that, and the cat's home and we don't care, you can turn the heat up to 80 degrees and, let it go. And then an hour before everybody gets home, it clicks the air conditioning back on in the summer, or, you like a warm house in the morning or in the winter time. Before you wake up, you turn the heat on. A little bit before you wake up, you normally get up at 6:30. You can turn the heat on at 6, and stuff like that. That's what a programmable thermostat allows you to do.
Oh, yeah, I understand. I set schedules. I mean, mine, at 6 o'clock, I close my business, my thermostat goes up.
Yep.
So it's not going to keep it cool.
Yeah. But a critical peak pricing rate that drives an internet-driven thermostat or load management switches on hot water heaters, those kind of programs are driven by the utility, and they're managed by the utility. They're generally installed by the utility or a contractor, and then they're hooked into the system. And then there's the ongoing costs on those types of things. Those are, you need to demonstrate significant savings. You've got to have, major numbers of customers that you can drive into those programs to justify the costs.
Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Davis? No. Well, thank you so much, sir. We do appreciate it. And I'm sure are you going to be coming back again on this, or?
I work for you. If you need me back, I can come back.
Because there's a lot of information that you put out, and that's, lack of a better term, scary. Cost-wise.
And that is why Mr. Howard, Ms. Hall, and we've all worked together to say, let's do a pilot.
Right.
Because the town needs practice. We need feedback from customers on how things are working. If you want this rate to be successful, having a pilot for a year or thereabouts, and getting feedback, getting your billing staff comfortable with putting people on the rate, getting the meters changed over, getting the rates changed over in the billing system, going from the standard rate to the time of use rate, making sure the bills are correct, that the kilowatt hours are in the buckets that they're supposed to be in. You know, all those things take practice, take time, and those sorts of things. That's why this pilot is such a good idea, to get everybody comfortable. And then, in a year, year and a half, or whatever, we come back and say, okay, do we want to do this for the town? Does this work for the town? And we begin a phase in to give everybody in the town opportunity to save money, shift, and everything like that, and put them on the rate so that they see the price signal. Because the main thing about a time of use rate is the price signal. Because those extra hours are hours that cost the town more. I forgot one other thing. All those rates I showed you, all those are independent of the PCA. The PCA ad is a kilowatt hour charge for all kilowatt hours regardless of what time they were used. I forgot to include that. So that underlying cost doesn't change because it addresses a wholesale power cost that is separate and apart from the peak price and the energy rate per hour that's charged at the wholesale level.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that, sir.
If you need me back, not a problem.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, sir. We got one question for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have to think, when you were saying a one-year pilot program, how many would it require to have in this program for us to get a good read?
If we could get 2 or 3 commercial customers, and anywhere, I mean, if we could get a few will do, but I mean, the more the better. I mean, I think you would want to shop this rate to look at your customers' usage, and if you have customers that have issues with their higher bills, address this rate to them to give them the opportunity. Some of your higher use customers, they would naturally, because those are your winners, your higher use customers are generally your winners. So get them over. Because right now you don't really know exactly what time they use. But just to put a number on it, it'd be great if you could get 25 or 50 residential customers. I mean, as an optimistic number to try out the rate. That gives the staff enough time, enough practice on changing folks over, looking at the bills, getting the kilowatt hours in the right buckets, and then a couple of commercial customers that can do the same thing, and then and we can have a meeting with them to tell them how the rate works, things they can do to save money, shift usage, and how to think about time of use versus the standard rate. Help the town save money, help them save money.
And one more question. If this were initiated, if we went to the, after the pilot program, and it's something that's like, yes, this is something that would benefit the entire town, how would it be initiated? Would we do it in segments, like so many per?
Yes, we would work with staff to figure out how. The first thing we'd want to do is work with NextGrid and have them configure everybody's meter to read time of use. Total kilowatt hours, on peak and off peak, and have that uploaded to the billing system. And then work on with staff, once we put that information on a customer's bill, then we can, and people see it on their bill, then we can move into the phase of how many customers can we shift in a month, and how many, and then get it, because you want to identify, shift, monitor, identify, shift, monitor, so that, because there's going to be hiccups, and so you want to do, manageable bites in that transition. SMUD out in California, the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, took 5 years, but they've got hundreds of thousands of customers. I think Fayetteville took 3 years to transition all of their customers. So realistically, probably somewhere around a year to 18 months to translate all of Ayden's residential and small commercial customers. I think it'd be realistic if we could work on identifying how many is that, and how do you do that, and at what point do you cut off, shift, monitor.
So realistically, we're looking at least 2 years of incorporating in any hiccups that we might have, rather than a year and a half.
The pilot can run as long, hopefully we get enough customers, the pilot can run a year to a year and a half, 2 years. And then, we can, as an ongoing monitoring with staff on how well it's going. And then, we can have meetings to figure out how, customer impacts, how are they feeling. You gotta go through all the seasons. How do you do on summer? How do you do on winter? Those different rates, you need to communicate when the seasons change. So there's a whole process of the staff needs to go through on changes, notifications, and changeover in billings. So yeah, it's not as complicated as it sounds, but it's detailed work, and you need your detailed folks looking at that sort of stuff.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, now, Commissioner she brought up a couple of good points. So basically, when you get with NextGrid, and then we do a pilot program, we got 25 people, residential. So during the pilot program, you would have a separate line item on the bill that showed the separate rate during those times, and it would just be the same kilowatt price, but it would actually show what was used during those hours, so you would have an idea of what your bill could possibly go to, or something like that. You decide it would be broken down.
Optimistically, we could do something along those lines, but I don't know that we can. I still have to work. There's still some things that we need to work out with NextGrid. Now they do time of use rates. They can do on and off peak buckets. So one of the things that we're exploring right now is, can we shift the entire town over to all kilowatt hours and on and off peak kilowatt hours, and can they give you that information every month so that you can put that on a customer's bill? Not billed. You can't bill it because if you bill it in Tyler's going to want to book it into your general ledger and put it on the bottom line of the customer's bill.
Right.
But at least if you can identify the on and off peak buckets, and you start talking about it with the residents and stuff like that, you can tell them, look at your bill. You'll see how many kilowatt hours out of the total kilowatt hours you used, how many did you use on peak? How many did you use off peak? Here's the rates. You can calculate what your bill would be on this rate and everything like that. You can, it's pretty straightforward math, and it's very simple math that a customer could do. But we're working on seeing whether we can actually get that and flow it all the way through the system so that it goes into Tyler and then could be put on the bill. And we're still a little ways from that. That's going to be part of the ongoing pilot, provided it gets approved and that sort of thing.
Yes. Well, thank you. Anyone else have any more questions? Okay,
I
sorry.
love the tag team. This is
Sorry.
great.
Which that brings me to think, we have the capability of going online and checking our usage.
Mm-hmm.
So would that have the capability of being able to show how much peak time we're using and off-peak time we're using? Is that going to be accessible?
I don't know the answer to
Because that
that
would be more
question.
real time.
If you're talking about kilowatt hour buckets in on peak and off peak, and can that be loaded into their portal? That's something else. That's what I'm talking about, that we need to look at and see if we can flow it all the way through to their bill and then have it in the portal. We're still talking that through with the Electricities folks and trying to work with NextGrid to figure out whether we can flow that kind of information. And so that's the only answer I have.
Because it would just
because
be useful.
I don't know.
It would be useful to all of us that use the power, that if we, especially during the pilot program, and, you know, to know when are we actually using more than what we need to be, and how to adjust our usage. Unless.
And that's what the on and off peak buckets would tell you. I mean, it doesn't do anybody really any good to say how much you were using in the 1 hour where the CP occurred. That's not really to the customers, that's not really a valid, meaningful number, that 1 hour that they're using. So, yeah, but if we can get the flow through the portal, they're on and off peak in buckets, and then start the communication process with folks, that would be the best thing. And then if we can flow it all the way to the bill for the folks that may not, you know, use the portal, that would be great too.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think that's it. Okay,
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
Rossi, appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
And like I said, if you need me back, Marcia and Mr. Howard know how to get to me.
Yes, sir.
And they can just let me know and I'll be back.
Thanks so much. Okay, Ms. Hall, budget workshop, fiscal year 26 board priorities.
Yes, so, got a presentation for you, it's a little bit of an updated one from, last week, and, I'm just, y'all can hear me okay?
Yes.
Just a recap, we're gonna recap a few things, we're gonna, talk about a few things, and then we're gonna get y'all to drive us.
Button on the mic on.
The button on the mic on? It's not, I don't wanna blur y'all out though, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me now?
Down just a tad, please.
Now? Now?
It don't sound like it's on.
Use your mother voice.
Uh-oh. My husband's like, oh my God, there's 4 people. All right, so, this is gonna be just, all right, we're gonna get started. All right, so you can, 4 major funds, your general fund and your 3 enterprise accounts, electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. So just to recap, we're gonna start with the general fund. You have 14 departments that get funding for general fund. So last week we talked about this, but we broke it down a little bit more. We have 51 full-time positions, 7 part-time fire positions, which is split with the rural fire, 33 volunteer firefighters split with rural fire, 6 board members, 2 part-time permanent positions, which is the library and recreation, 2 part-time telecommunicators with our police department, 7 reserve police officers, and 22 seasonal recreational part-time employees. As of right now, all the positions are filled, which is a good problem to have. Not many towns across North Carolina can say that. So when we first asked your departmental to submit their budgets, $7 million for funds were requested. And as we built this budget, there is no increase in property tax. It remains at 0.54 at this time. As of today, we have shaved some things down. The fund balance is $198,000 to make the budget for the general fund balance. The only CIP project that we have submitted is the $4,950 for the general fund for the keyless entry to the building, which is split with the rural fire. The total CIP projects requested was a little over $532,000. As of this time, we're not asking for any increase in fees for general fund services. It does include a $25,000 contingency fund, which is suggested by the UNC School of Government. And it does include computer upgrades, since Windows is slated to sunset, some cybersecurity needs, and some server upgrades, which is a driving factor of the increase. Also, some other factors for the general fund draft budget, there's no full-time positions, although 4 were requested. We did remove the part-time position at the library. Our insurance rates, we were prepared by the league that they will be going up. We expect an increase, and we also project an increase in workman's comp due to all the, they call tsunami verdicts. Our property liability is expecting to have a substantial increase, and we're still going through our departmental assets to determine their value. It does include a proposed COLA at 4% and the return of merit up to 4%, which was renewed in fiscal year 24. There are no local donations included. The general fund had capital improvement requests of $532,021. There's none included except for the one critical item that the fire department requested, which is the door badge entry system, which is split with the rural fire department. Reimbursable of services. The general fund departments that receive funding from the enterprise accounts, there's 8. Governing board, administration, finance, human resources, informational technology, central garage, public buildings, and economic development. Right now, 45% of electric, 20% water and sewer, and 1% stormwater contributes to these departments to reimburse these departments for work done towards the enterprise accounts. The next page is a breakdown of these departments and how the 45, 20, and 1% contributes across these departments in the general fund at a total of $1.4 million. For the past few years, our audit findings has been that the transfer, which is in addition to the reimbursable services, has been too much. So we are decreasing the electric transfer to the general fund this fiscal year from $600,000 to $550,000 and from $70,000 to $50,000 for a total of $600,000. Moving forward, fringe benefits for full-time positions. We have requested health insurance and the health insurance benefits to be quoted. We're still waiting on those. We're still waiting on the state mandated retirement percents, and it also includes our personnel policy, which we pay for certifications in certain departments. The general fund revenue classification is broken out, but the big, where we get most of our money is the ad valorem taxes. The other taxes, unrestricted intergovernmental, restricted governmental, license and permits, interest and investments, miscellaneous, and pass-through funds such as PAL bill and SROs. What I've included is the fiscal year 25 versus the fiscal year 26. Oh, wait a minute, I'm so sorry. This is the latest final evaluation of tax from Pitt County Tax Office. There was an increase, which contributed to the overall fund balance decrease, the balance to general fund. But that is in, that will be in your packet that you have in front of you in the back. And that shows how the property tax was broken down for Ayden. And then the next slide breaks out fiscal year 25 versus fiscal year 26 and the difference between what we had to budget based off of our last year's audit. So in fiscal year 25, we could only budget 97%, and that was based off of the financial audit from the year before. And this year, since we've got the final evaluation and we have 99% collection rate based off of the audit, we were able to increase the tax base. I believe the difference between the two tax years is $218,000. So in general
I'm
fund.
sorry, so with the new evaluation from the county, we only have an increase of $218,000?
From what we had budgeted last year, because our percent changed based off what we had to budget for audit and LDC guidelines. So in fiscal year 25, we can only budget 97% of what was proposed, but this year, since our audit was 99%, we can budget the 99% of the 2.5.
So fiscal year 26, real property, that includes all the properties in the town of Ayden,
Right.
is $454,000 total. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So in general fund summary, their fiscal year 25 current approved budget is $6.7 million. Our proposed fiscal year 26 budget is $6.788837. The fund balance needed to cover is $198,041, which is a 1.2% increase. The fund balance, according to the fiscal year 24 audit, we have an unassigned fund balance of $1.3 million, which is 21%. The minimum threshold should be 34%, and the average per unit site Ayden should be 64%. Our general fund revenues is limited. Our fiscal year 26, we reduced the electric transfer because of the audit finding. Our cemetery, again, no spots for sale, only open and closing fees and monument permits. We expect a decrease in community meals. And our AIM program, which is a county instruction mentorship program, which Scott, myself, and Anisha just finished, the League of Municipalities will be paying up to $50,000 towards our audit for next year. Moving on to our enterprise accounts, electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. We're gonna start with electric. The overall budget is $15.5 million. The CIP request was a little over $1 million. The CIP included in the draft was $670,000, which included a line truck replacement, a tractor, and transmission line pole changeout. They are requesting 2 positions, which will allow the department to run 2 full crews. We are not requesting any rate increase for fiscal year '26. We do request an installation subdivision increase, which we will like to discuss a little bit more later on. We just heard from about the time of use pilot program, and we also, just a breakdown of the 2 riders that we have going, and we have a potential for rider 3 in fall of 2026. We just don't know that amount right now. The enterprise water and sewer fund, this increased just a little bit.
I'm sorry, Marcia.
Yes, sir?
The electric fund, based on the dollars and cents you have there, or actually with your, basically there's 2 full-time positions throughout 2 crews, you've got that included in the cost, because you're correct?
Okay, can you back up just
The
one make
2
sure?
full-time
I think so.
positions for electric,
Yes, we have that
you've
included.
got included. So you basically what you're asking is for the board to approve those 2 full-time positions.
Yes, sir.
Now, have we, how many years, I mean, because I know that the electric department's been asking for a while,
Yes, sir.
so, and we've been denying it. So are we in a position now that we can afford to do that
Yes, sir.
without any increases and with a capital expenditure of almost $700,000?
Yes, sir. And I think Alga can tell you more about how the plan is so that he can have the 2 crews working in the subdivisions and one, responding to service calls.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So the water and sewer, rate went up just a little bit, 4.2. We do have, approximately 5 grants going, 2 CDBG grants, 3 DWI grants. The debt is approximately still $7 million. We're not 100% sure about the CMSD contract. I am expecting it to increase just a little bit. And that the noose is, there's no increase at the moment. They are requesting a full-time position also, which would be an admin ops position, for some of the next grid, AMI, the water leak reporting, and to a backup to the admin. This also includes in CIP $156,000. We increased a few prices on this due to tariffs. The fire hydrants and the SCADA, the sewer SCADA. The rates, in your packet is a duplication of, what the UNC Environmental Finance Center presented to you in March. She has studied the rates for the past 2 years. She has, drafted 5 proposals. She will be back to the May board meeting to discuss and answer any questions. Among staff, we like version 2 because it benefits the residents and it increases allowance of water, and it kind of lowers the price. But whatever version you, tell me directly, it will change the FY26 revenues, which in this budget, it is flat. We only recorded what we currently have for investments and expected revenue. With the budget, currently $42,000 is needed from the water fund balance to balance the budget. But then again, once you tell me which version of the rate structure you like, that will generate that. Moving to stormwater fund, we are, requesting an increase from the $4 monthly fee to a $5 monthly fee for residential, and from $15 to $20 for commercial, well, non-residential properties. And then,
I'm sorry.
yes,
You're
sir,
going up $1 on residential, but $5 on commercial?
I'm gonna, pass that on to Stephen.
Okay.
About that, so he
Okay.
can talk to you a little bit more about that, or the more details of that, but, that kind of ends my spill for, fiscal year '26 at this moment. I just, would like to know what the board would like, priorities or follow-up questions that you may have or need to, work on.
Questions for Marcia Hall? For your questions next month, right? After all this, there's a lot of information, a lot of it is stuff to go over.
Yes, sir. It's a moving target.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a lot of questions, believe me.
I believe you.
Yeah. Commissioner Connor? Any questions? Commissioner Davis? Thank you, Marcia.
Oh, you're welcome. Anything else you wanna say? Okay. Okay.
Okay, so next we're gonna go into, Marcia, the UNC EFC Ayden Financial Health and Rate Considerations.
That is actually in your packet, that's just a pre.
You just want us to take a look at it,
Yes,
right?
sir, that's a pre-read,
Okay.
for Alicia, she'll be back in May.
Okay.
She breaks down the 5 versions of rate structures, that we would like you all to review.
Well, I saw that, yeah, it was first review, but I was reading off the agenda.
No, I wanted,
Okay.
because I said, let me, make sure so they'll have it prepared for May.
Right.
She couldn't be here tonight.
Okay, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome, thank you.
Okay, so next, I'm gonna go ahead and go to, and this is very brief. We added item B, items for discussion. And this is something that, I've discussed it with the mayor as well. During our public comment, process, a lot of times, the board does not react to the citizen on the public comments, whether they have a complaint about, I'll give you an example, the cemetery, when, one of the residents came in and talked about a truck driving across the grave or whatever. And it's just an example next to a stone. It was the one that got broken that one time. But that was just, I'm just picking that comment. So we hear the comment, or we hear the public comment from the citizen, and then the board turns it over to the town managers, to look into the public comment, whatever it may be. It could be whatever. Stop sign at some other location, whatever the situation during the public comment. So we get all the public comments, but the board in general, we don't get feedback on if we turn everything over to the town manager. So what we'd like to do, and the town manager and the clerk are gonna get together on what's the best way to do this. But each board meeting, when we take in public comments, on the next board meeting that we have the following month, we're gonna put that under, right before public comments. The manager will, basically just, things that needs to be said, he'll come out and he'll give the resolutions on the previous month's public comments. That way, it doesn't look like we're just brushing the citizens off. What did we do? What did we do about that? Now, some things are not, we have to be careful, so we can't be, specific on a lot of things. We might say a citizen said or something like that. We don't necessarily want to mention the name, but if they watch the recording, they'll know who we're talking about. So, and it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for the board and the town manager. It will be. But we want to come back on the next month's meeting and address the public comments from the previous meeting. That way, it doesn't just look like we're just, even though we know the town manager is handling this stuff, we want it to come back and have it written in what was done based on the public comments. That way, we're being very transparent, and the residents don't think we're just brushing them off on their comments. We want that resolution, and we want to give it back from public record. Okay? Okay, so that's pretty much everything that we had to discuss tonight. I need, okay, go ahead, Commissioner Paul.
As far as the request for additional staff, and the board, whether we choose to allow that or not, do we do that now, or do we do that
That would be in May.
in May?
Yeah, that would be the May, what's the next budget workshop?
It's after the May meeting.
May 21st.
May 21st. I think it would give us, because let me back up. We got a lot of information tonight, and we've got a lot of things to think about. And May 21st should be an opportunity to do what we're going to do on this. But also May 21st, we've got until June. I mean, the budget has to be approved by June 30th, correct? But we're not going to wait till last minute, of course not. But
We need a public hearing on May 12th
on
on the budget.
12 June,
May.
No, May.
12 May. Okay.
So if there's any feedback you can give me now, so that I can do my research.
Well, I'm not ready, I'm by myself,
Okay,
but I mean, you know,
I mean, I just,
yeah.
anything I
But,
can do.
and because we have two board members not here right now,
Correct.
too. We have the mayor and we have Commissioner Newell's not here as well. But, based on what you, I mean, this is good. I appreciate all the information you get. And one of my main concerns, to be very honest with you, is not having that little tick mark next to we moved too much money out of the electric fund into the general fund. I don't wanna get dinged on that again. We do not wanna get dinged on that. We wanna stay within statute on that amount of money that's transferred. And you're on top of that. So, okay.
So you want a recommendation on anything that came up tonight?
I would love it, because that would help me like research and work with the department heads, or to see if there's anything, Scott, you can.
Plug in any numbers that y'all feel comfortable giving.
Because I
Solve some of the puzzle.
I do have a request.
Okay.
Okay, and one of them is.
Can I finish, can I do something real fast before we move into that?
Sure.
And then, because I mentioned the, public comments resolution from the prior board meetings, I would need, I think I need a motion on that, don't I have to put it on the agenda for next month? Or do I need a motion for that?
We'll put it on the agenda.
I mean, to have that added to our agenda, it's for.
You gotta forgive me, just a weird echo, I didn't hear part of what you said.
Okay, I was discussing adding to the agenda in the future, on our board agenda for monthly board meetings, a public comments resolution, prior to public comments.
Yeah, so item 3B tonight, you guys discussed it, but you didn't take any action? So-
No, we have not, we're discussing it now, but before I close that, and we move into what we're just discussing, do we need to make a motion on that, or just?
If you guys want to approve that and take action on it, let's do the
Okay.
motion of a.
So, I just discussed, having that added to our board agenda and future board meetings on doing resolutions, from the public comments from the prior month board meeting. So, if y'all wanna do that, I would need a motion.
I'd like to make that motion mainly because, the public comments are part of the minutes and part of the discussions that we have at each meeting. Therefore, I think it would be beneficial to the public and to the board for us to then have the resolution to address what the public has brought to us. So I did make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I said,
You can't have a second. All in, pardon? Okay, what?
It's really not a personal comment. We need to also reiterate that some things can be handled by the town manager. They don't necessarily have to come to the board meeting. How we would address that? 'Cause I feel that some comments that we have at public hearing is actually a phone call to the town manager. Don't necessarily have to be a public.
I think that would be a good comment, when the mayor, talks about public comments, the next board meeting. Is just, let everyone know that the town manager can be addressed, with the issues. They don't have to come to we want them to come to the board meeting, but if it's something that needs to be handled, then the town manager can't handle it. I agree, because a lot of times the public comments actually could have been, resolved earlier. So, but we don't want to, I agree, we don't want to turn anybody away or anything. So I do have a motion, and I do have a second. All in favor? All opposed? The motion carries. So that'll be added to our, next agenda. Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Goff, go ahead, and, you were talking about the budget workshop.
What I'd like for you to consider when we're going over this is, under the library, I would like for us to seriously consider another part-time. And the reason for that is because I've been made aware of a lot of the activities that occur there. We have only one part-time person, one full-time person. Well, the way the part-time person works, that does not give the full-time person a lot of leeway. And if one of them would become ill, especially the full-time person, that second-time person cannot fulfill all of the hours that are necessary. And so then that puts our library at a very tenuous position, because then we can't have it open. It's being used a lot, if you look at the reports as far as the usage that's there. We have a lot of people coming in, participating in the activities of the library, so we'd really like for us to seriously consider that second part-time person, please.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Gall? Commissioner Khan?
We need to read through it.
She wants to read it. I agree. I do have one comment though. The mayor made this comment to me today. He was looking at, what does the entire governing board, it looks to me like it's $7,000 for travel and training, $7,000 annually for the entire governing board. So, he was looking at possibly increasing that. I don't know what the number would be, to make sure that the board can attend the different things that are put on by the state for board members. But I don't have that number. I saw you went from 5 to 7.
Yeah, we increased it. I know that at other places they allot individuals a certain amount for travel and trainings, but I don't think that's ever been the case in Ayden. So if whatever you tell me you feel like it needs to be, we'll.
Well, I just want to bring it to your attention. That was what was discussed from the mayor to me, reference that. Also, I have one other question, and we're going to look at it more. So right now, did you calculate in the budget? I'm just going to use this number, 8% on salary increases.
4 and 4.
That's 8%.
Yes, sir. But it was separated, so if you needed to decrease it, I can go back easily and fix that.
Say, and what was the standard COLA increase for the country and say for, people working? Was it 2.4?
I think it was 3.1 that I saw the standard CPI.
What did the retirees get? Do you recall? I think my VA, or not VA, my retirement was 2.4. So you think it was 3.1?
I think it was 3.1 that just came out across the state.
State was 0? Oh. Okay, and I want to make sure I understand Mary. Mary is up to 4%.
Up to 4.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so, okay. All right.
Also put a increase in that for commission.
Commissioner increase?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we'll do is, we're gonna bombard you with a lot of stuff, and we don't have to wait till the next budget workshop. We can call you and say, what we think, and then, but the only thing is you gotta get a consensus from everybody. But normally what I do is I call everybody. And say, what do you think about? And that way when I call, like, the town manager, I say, I'll talk to every commissioner. We wanna do this, or, that way we don't violate any, laws, But I really do think that the board members do need to take a look at this and go line item by line item, and make recommendations on that. But yeah, you did a great job.
Thank you. And if there's any more details that you want per line item, if you would just email me, I can send you the
Sure.
details.
Okay, all right. We've got a question.
I don't know, thank you, but I noticed in Ayden, the gas is usually like 20 cents higher per gallon. I'm wondering, is it based on us making it, giving the sales tax from?
No, it's not. I would tell you, by having a little bit of time with Trade Oil Company, I worked for them for a few years way back. They claim, a lot of the gas companies are claiming it's on destination, how far that they have to, like Ayden has actually been as high as 30 cents or more per gallon than right down the street, like 5 miles. And I noticed that in Grifton, it's $3.11 today in Grifton. Now, I don't know what the cost of oil went up to today. I know it was $63 either yesterday or the day before per barrel. But, gas, they claim, and I'm laughing because it's a joke. They call it based on destination and distance and all that stuff, so Greenville is cheaper but did the gas come from the south or from the north, which way down the road? But in Ayden, what I see is competitive pricing. Whenever the they're not 7-Elevens, but they are. They're owned by a 7-Eleven company that want to own 7-Eleven. The Speedways, whenever their price goes up, right across the street it goes up. So it's competitive pricing. So the prices are going to be the same, pretty much in Ayden, because we only got
So we don't benefit.
2 stations,
we
or
don't
3.
benefit from- I'm
Pardon?
thinking that we would benefit from the.
We get sales tax revenue. We get that. Sales tax. Sales tax, every
I know
business.
we get the sales tax, I thought, we getting more from, since it was higher in Ayden, that was more money for us.
Oh, it will be, because we get a 1/4%.
I'm saying the price so that we could get more money, but we don't have any.
No, ma'am, we do not. And I think the sales tax, unless it's changed, we get from the county, we get a 1/4%, 0.25% on the taxes that are collected. Okay.
And the town also pays sales tax, so anything we buy, we pay sales tax, and then we have to, depending on where we take ownership of the item, the location, we have to request that sales tax to be reimbursed to us. So,
And y'all are doing that?
yes, sir.
I know you got on top of that, some of that wasn't done before you got here, was it? And that was a lot of money.
That was a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. It's kind of like a nonprofit or something, don't pay taxes. If, and I've had, in my business, I've had people come in and say, well, I'm a nonprofit, I don't pay sales tax. I say, understand that, but you're gonna fill out a form to recover your sales tax, which you have to pay me because the state requires me to collect it. So, and the same thing as a municipal, we have to pay it, but then we submit the paperwork to get our sales tax money back. Okay.
I do have another question. Is there any, way for the, insurance that you could have like a group for nonprofit to go together? Because a lot of places, I know like Juneteenth is getting ready to come up or, have their activity. They're gonna be requested to have, insurance because of liability. Is it, any way that you can have like a group, for lack of a better term, that you could go and this group, they could come together and buy insurance, you understand what I'm saying?
I'm gonna defer to Jeremy. He's done the research on that for nonprofits for insurance.
It's a solid idea, but with some of the criteria that goes into how they're setting the event insurance coverage, it's all duration, population, and then the category of risk. So the variety and all the events from Juneteenth to any number of events we hold, I can imagine the cost would skyrocket because now you're including several days, thousands more people. And we got a pretty good arrangement now with our working relationship with Gavigar. They represent so many local municipalities that their pricing is about 1/5 of what some of the local carriers are charging for the same coverage. But I can't imagine that they would want to cover so many groups for a whole 365 days.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
One thing I want us to think about with the budget, Mayor Pro Tem was mentioning, like, we don't want to do this again, so it'll be a budget funding. Something we've been doing for years that, obviously is not sustainable. We've been having to get money out of the general fund savings account and the enterprise fund savings account to balance the budget. And that's something we want to get away from too. We are chiseling it down. And just for knowledge sakes, like I did the math today, and if we increase the tax rate 1 cent, that would generate $51,939.45. So, you can't buy a fitted out police car for that. But anyway, just some figures, and hopefully, and we keep making a steady process, but eventually we're gonna have to quit borrowing from our savings to be sustainable and to actually get off the list.
So Marcia, at the end of, if in June, if the budget stood as is, the LGC wants us at 34%. What percent are we gonna be at, 21?
General fund? I'm not sure. I mean, that would be a very hard thing to project, depending on what would happen in a year. I think the town has taken the reimbursable of services in the past and has transferred transferred 100% of reimbursable services, which is totally, not correct, because if you've had all these vacancies through the years and you didn't spend the expense, but you transferred it from the electric fund and the water fund to the general fund that has increased, then that is not good,
I guess what we need from you
okay?
is a path to 34%. We need a path. We need to get there. The state's requiring it. And to be honest, it went from, if I'm not mistaken, and this might even before I think it was when I first got on the board, it was 8%. It was 8%. And I think that was like 1 month of your general fund revenue, whatever, 1 month that you had to have for catastrophic failures and things of that nature. To go from 8 to 34% was a major increase, and we never got there. We need a path there. We need to figure out how we're gonna, because we're gonna be on that list until we do. So we need a path to 34%. So, just like last year, we didn't buy any capital last year. We didn't approve them because we're trying to build the general fund to get to that 34%. But we're still gonna, it looks to me, I'm saying we're gonna probably be about the same, 21-22% on the general fund. And we need a path to 34%. I mean, and again, not tomorrow, it may be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, but we got to have a path to that. We got to figure out how we're going to get there. We really do. We got. I mean, that's. I know.
Just don't kill the messenger when I
No. But we got it. We got to have a path. Now, with the growth that we're getting, that's why I'm a little disappointed that we had less than 250,000. Because you said 228, I think. Mm-hmm. Less than 250,000 increase in our collection on property values. When my stuff, just my property, 2 properties I own went up 120,000 a year. And I mean, that's a lot of money for just one person. And only have 228,000, or I think it was a total of, it was about 230,000, I think is what it was, increase, correct? Or what's our total revenue for real property, residential?
2.5.
See, and what were we before the new increase that the county gave us?
2.4?
Pardon?
2.2? I'd have to go back and double check that, but I don't want to speak out of turn.
I mean, because I wanted a comparison, I think I asked you about it. I wanted a comparison to what our taxes, collections of real property was prior to the new assessment that the county did. What was the difference? Because I know at one time we were talking about it, and we were talking close to 800,000.
That's correct.
On an increase from our previous tax values to the new tax values, because we were looking at going tax neutral on property tax, because we're at 54 cents per $100, but we didn't do anything. We stayed at 54 cents. The county went from 68 to 60, if I'm not mistaken. And again, I think Winterville dropped a penny. I think they did. I think they went from 50 to 49 or 48 to 47. I'm not sure. But we stayed at 54 cents for 100. We didn't change anything. So I'm curious to know the revenue, the increased revenue, where we're at on real property on the previous, before the county did the new assessments.
So you need fiscal year 24, because we have fiscal year 25 and 26.
Right, yeah. In other words, what was it before the county came through and reassessed tax property values? What was the collection amount for the town of Ayden?
Okay.
The year before the new tax assessment? Because to me, that's a third of the general fund. If you had an increase of 800,000 and you're looking at a little bit over 2.1 or whatever, $2.1 million, 800,000, that's over 30%. So what do we do with, what happened? So that's, if you
You
could
have full staff.
well, see.
And a lot of the state projections for some of your intergovernmental funds have decreased because of lower sales tax, natural gas, telecommunications. Some of that is like way down, which is also part of your general fund revenue.
Okay, thank you. And we need a path. We need to figure out how we're going to get to 34% in this county. And I know it's not overnight. I know that. I'm not being unrealistic here. It takes time because we haven't moved that bar hardly at all in the last 2 or 3 years. We're not getting there, and we got to figure out how to get there. Okay, so let's go into board comments. Commissioner Davis,
I don't have any comment.
Commissioner Gall,
What you want to say is, those of you that are here, appreciate you being here. Our department head, y'all are very much appreciated, and your feedback is very important to us, so continue to do that, so that we can help you and you help us make the right decisions. Also, Marcia, you and your staff, appreciate what you put together. It is a lot of information, and I've gone through every page, so I know exactly what you're working on, and I appreciate it. So those of you that are here, the fire department, you are appreciated, we recognize you being here, and I know you want an opportunity to talk about what you all need, and that opportunity will be ascribed to you, so just have patience on that. And just hope that the mayor continues to improve with his health. He's having a long trouble with that knee. And so let's just continue to pray for his health, and he'll be back with us. That's all I have to say. Just thank you to all of you. Have a good evening.
Commissioner Connor.
Yeah, y'all agree with what Commissioner Docker said. I just want to add, thanks to everyone that participated in the sunrise service. Special thanks to the staff for setting up. We got a lot of positive comments about the way everything was set up. And we had the initial breakfast at the town manager's church, and we thank him for his department he played. And that's it.
Okay, I just have my comments, I'm gonna just keep them short and brief, but one thing I wanna throw out to a couple of the department heads here, water and sewer, electric. The board needs to know where we're at on these development fees and what impact fees that we're doing when we're putting in new subdivisions. We need to make sure that we are charging what we need to charge to not break even and not be in the red, to be in the black. We need to be fair, but we also need to be fair to our town. So if we need to do increases, we need you guys to put that forward to us during this, so we can move forward on it. And it doesn't need to be yesterday, we need to move forward. If we're not, for example, I know Mr. Alligood mentioned $60,000 for a phase, what was it, phase 3 what?
It was in Montevallo.
Sir, Montevallo,
Montevallo.
phase 3. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we had a gentleman out in ETJ put in 100 tobacco barns, correct? You remember that? What did he pay for?
All his stuff was overhead. He paid right at $30,000 for all the overhead line and the 9 transformers that were hung on that line.
So are we charging developers?
So his deal was different. In our policy, we have 2 types of charges. We have a line extension, which you pay for the cost of the materials plus a 15% service charge. Underground subdivision is a per lot fee, which is currently at $2,200 per lot.
Is that a fair fee?
I recommend what Marcia has got in the budget go to $2,500 per lot.
And okay, all right. So that's something we're going to discuss.
Right, and
I
then
think we're even too low at 2,500.
and then the line extension, the way our line extension policy is written, it needs to stay as is because we're recovering our money on that. The customer pays for the cost of the materials plus 15% service charge.
So where does that change that policy change that? What level?
That's been like that since I've been here.
But you're saying we need to.
No, it needs to stay. It needs to stay as is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
if a man buys a 100-acre farm and he wants to put a house at the back of it, and we have to build a power line all the way to the back of it, he pays for everything it takes to build that power line back there.
I was just using that gentleman for example because I want to make sure that I don't. That's why I asked that question.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that the town of Ayden is charging what we need to charge to operate in the black, and we do need to make a little profit. We don't need to break even. We're not. I mean, that's not why we're here. We want to grow, but we also we need to be fair, but we also don't need to be
Right. I-
taken advantage of.
Of all the electric fees that we have right now, I would say that the subdivision fee needs to go to the 2,500 that Marcia has recommended, and that'll put us real close.
Real close to what?
Well, breaking even on the large ones, it'll put us to the good on the small ones.
Good in percentage.
As far as ahead on the
Uh-huh.
small ones,
Uh-huh.
maybe 5 to 10% over what it actually costs us.
You know how we always compare what Greenville's doing, Winterville's doing, Farmville's doing?
Everybody does that.
What are their fees?
You cannot get a straight answer out of Greenville, but I can tell you, on a secondary service going to a house in Greenville, they charge over $2,000 per service now if they have to do it, because they don't want to do it. They want to pay. They want a contractor to put it in for the customer, and then they come back and just put the wire in the pipe. If they have to put a service to a house, it's $2,000 now.
Okay. What about Farmville?
We're at 500.
Say again?
We're at 500 for up to 100 feet.
We're at 500.
Correct.
And they're 2,000.
Yes.
But that's.
They priced it like that because they don't want to do it. They
So
don't have the time.
So a combination of all these things equal 2,200. Or is that a separate item?
Well, subdivision is separate from the service that feeds the house. So when the subdivision gets built, the developer, you know who the developers are in this town, they pay that charge. Then when they sell the lots off to the builder, as the builder is building the houses and setting up the accounts, they pay for the service that leaves the transformers going to the house.
And
That's
we
what they
charge
pay
how much?
$500 for.
So why are we at $500?
Because we increased from 250 about 2 years ago when y'all voted on it.
So you come to us and say it should
Correct.
be more money.
And $500 covers a 100-foot service.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, and again, not everything we do, and you hear this all the time, we're not perfect up here,
Right.
but you're the experts. You're the ones that know what it's costing. So if we try to be real, I mean, not, and you know this, you've been around for a while. It's not everything going to go your way, you know, but at the rate, what's been going on over the last few years and everything, we've done some major increases, probably in 23 we did some increases. But we need to stay ahead, and if we're way down, we need you to bring it to the board and say, I'm recommending this amount, or get with Marsha.
Right.
I'm recommending this amount, and then bring it to the board, and
With
move forward.
With the prices that are coming down on some of the components I buy, like I said, the only thing that we're still off base on is the per lot subdivision charge. Simply because the price of transformers and underground primary wire has not come down. Okay. Underground primary wire has still continuously gone up. It's $5 a foot now. It used to be $2.40.
Okay, so all we need is you to bring that to the board so we can do that.
Do you want me to do that at that next meeting that night?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes, sir. Not yesterday. We need to get right.
I can put it in writing tomorrow for you if you want it.
Well, we have to have a board meeting. And we have
I got
to
you.
vote on it.
Okay.
I mean, if I could do it, I'd do it. Yeah, but I can't.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so my comments are, I appreciate everyone here. Good to have a crowd out there that listened, and we didn't have a lot of pushback tonight, which is great. Those that came, I'm sorry that we do not have public comments on budget workshops. But you're welcome, you know, the town manager, you still have an open door policy, don't you? I have, you can come, I'm open 8 to 6 Monday through Friday. And believe me, people know, and they come talk to me. If you have an issue, come talk to me. If I can't handle it, I'll try to get it to someone who can, i.e. the town manager most of the time. But we really do appreciate everyone coming out and spending the time with us tonight. We've got a lot of, the board's got a lot of information to look at. In the next meeting, hopefully we can address everything and make any changes we need to make and then move forward. So I ask you for a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Thank you, we're adjourned.